Hello everyone, welcome back. So in this video, we will see what is a partial selector and what is a full selector and how we will use them based on our requirement. Okay, so for that, I'm going to get a particular selector by using the get text. So for that, I just browsed for get text in my activities panel and I just pulled it out into my sequence. Okay, so for that, I'm going to indicate the element on the screen. So just click on it, and let's say if you wanted to have a delay after you click on the element, just like how I have done, just click on F2. That will provide you the delay so that you can go to the required window and you can select the element. So in this, I wanted to have this particular element. Okay, so if you click on this particular button, you'll have all the options to indicate on screen. Let's say if you wanted to indicate one more time to get the actual selector, and you can see the selector that got extracted over here. Okay, if you wanted to have a clear view of it, you can click on open in UI Explorer. That will take you to the UI Explorer, which we have seen in the previous video, with all the elements available with respect to that particular selector on our window. Okay, so now what is a full selector? So let's see, if you observe here, we have this particular HTML tag, right? So in this HTML tag, we can see that app is chrome.exe and the title is this. So along with that, we have this selector is corresponding to the particular element. Okay, so in order to make you understand clearly, what I'll do is I'll take one more get text. Okay, and I'm indicating again on the screen and selecting this, and I'll edit it, go to UI Explorer. So I'm opening two different UI Explorers. So now in this also we have the same HTML tag, but with a different web control tag, right? So here, if you observe, this is the selector that is corresponding to this particular element. Okay, and this is the selector HTML tag is corresponding to the whole application. I can say the whole screen. Let's talk in terms of screens. So this selector is with respect to the screen. It is in the Chrome application and in this particular page. So if you are having a selector which is having the information about the screen as well as the particular selector, then we can call this as a full selector. So let's say if we don't have this information, this is called as partial selector. So in this case, I'll validate, and if you see, it is not validated. It is showing not a correct, not a valid selector, right? So this is the full selector. Let me validate it again. It is validated and we can highlight and see the element, right? So this is how we can select the full selector and partial selector. So now I believe this is clear for you how we can use the full selector and partial selector and what is the difference between them. Along with the screen, if we have the selector, then it's called as full selector. It has the whole information of the screen. And if it is carrying only the information of a particular element that we are indicating, then it's called as a partial selector, right? So now let's see how we can use it based on our requirement. And for that, I'm saying okay. So let me close the UI Explorers. So both of these having the full selectors. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is, let's take a open browser activity. So if you ask me why do we use this open browser activity, this is basically used to open the browser. Okay, here you can provide the URL here, and also you have to provide the browser type. So here this is called as a property panel. So in the property panel, you have to first provide the browser type and the URL. So let's select the browser as Chrome, and the URL I have to provide over here. So for that, what I'm going to do, the URL of the page is this one, right? I'm going to select the URL and I have given it in the double quotes. If you observe, I have provided it in the double quotes. And let me, if you see this particular thing, so I'm going to run this particular file and we will see how this actually works. So open browser will open the application, open the browser. So before to that, let me close this. So this will open the browser. Get text will extract the text from this particular thing, and this also will extract the text. So after we extract, we have to save it somewhere, right? So for that, I'm creating a variable which is name, laptop name. Okay, and this is laptop price. So if you're not familiar with what is a variable and how I'm creating it, you have to go through one video, which I will link it at the end of this video. So you can go through that video. You will have a clear understanding on variables, arguments, and different other basic information about UiPath. Okay. So let me run this file or debug it in a slow step process. Okay. So okay, before to that, let me take a log message and print it. Okay, so basically we use log message to print or to, to identify the logs. So for this, I'm going to check the laptop name, and here I'm going to check the laptop price. Okay. I'm going to debug the file again, before to which I should close it. And don't worry about the debugging right now. I will explain you in a separate module how we can debug, but just try to understand what I'm going to explain you here. Okay, so if you just observe, it has given me the laptop name, whatever is there on the screen, it has provided me the laptop name, right? It is still loading, so I'm not able to see. And if you see the price, it has given me the price, exact price, right? So now we understood how to take the selector and how to open the browser by using open browser activities and all this. Now let's see with this everything we have done with respect to the full selector. So now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take off this particular selector, and I'm going to validate, and this as well I'm going to take it off, delete. Okay, so if you observe, as I mentioned you, if I take off this whole thing, then that will become a partial selector, right? So if you observe, this is not editable. This, it has taken this particular selector from the URL that we've provided here and the browser type. Okay, so that's why it is not editable. So let me go to the UI Explorer, then you can see you cannot find out that particular, see, you cannot edit this particular selector. Okay, so all you can edit is this one. Okay, you can edit this one. This is disabled because it has been picked up from the open Chrome open browser activity that we have provided here. So this is how we can select a partial selector. So now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to debug the file again, and we can see the output in our output panel. Okay, let me, okay, if you see here, it has extracted me the output same as in the previous scenario, right? It has worked even though if we didn't give the whole selector, correct? So if you ask me when to use this and when you cannot use this, so let's say if you are having your activities like whatever the web UI automation activities that you were doing, if you're having this inside open browser, then there is no need that you can use this. You can have a partial selector. And also if the browser whatever you're inside, let's say if you're opening the browser but you're navigating from that particular screen to different screen, okay, let me give an example. Here you are, okay, you're opening the browser in this page, but you're clicking on it and doing some other action. Okay, you're clicking on it and extracting the information from this screen. So it is no longer the same title, right? The title is varying, so it's not the same title. So if you are doing the automation on the same screen, and if you're having the activity in front inside the open browser, then you can go for a partial selector. Okay. And if you ask me what is the advantage of using a partial selector, so let's say if the title of the page is changing, okay, then you don't have to change that in all of these selectors. It will still work just by changing the URL in the open browser. Okay. But if you use the full selector, even in that case as well, then you have to change the selector. You have to change the URL or the title or whatever the, the selector that is corresponding to the screen. You have to change it throughout all other activities that you're using. So that's the major difference. So when you have to use a full selector, when you have to use a partial selector, that's the one main thing. Let's say if you're doing the actions like get text or whatever the activities that we are using, if it is corresponding to the same screen that we are opening, then you can go for the partial selector. But if you are switching the windows, if you're switching the screens, then in that case go for a partial selector. Okay. So if you go for a if you go for a partial selector, then in that case, what is the advantage of using a partial selector? So these you may get these questions in interviews, like why, when to use a partial selector, and what is a partial selector and full selector, what is the difference and all. So if you are using a partial selector, then you don't have to change it throughout the workflow. You can just change it in the open browser and it will be reflected throughout. Okay. So let's say if I wanted to change this in the Amazon. Okay. Let's say this is not a Flipkart, this is different site. Okay. Or Google. Okay. So if you see here, it URL got changed to google.com, right? So this is how it will be reflected throughout all these. So if you use a partial selector, that you don't have to change in all the activities that were preceding. You can just change it in a single place and that will be reflected. So that's how you can change it based on your requirement. I hope it's clear for you what is a full selector and partial selector. And if you still have any questions, do let me know in the comment section and I'm happy to help you.